So I thought I'd talk today about hammocks, both DIY hammocks, hammocks you can purchase on Etsy, hammocks that you can make yourself, whatever. There are a couple of different trains of thought with hammocks. So the most common thing that you will see seems to be fleece on fleece, or fleece and cotton, or fleece and flannel. This one behind me is actually flannel and cotton because I made it for summertime. This one over here is all fleece. Let me see if I have a good fleecy one. I do not have one at the moment, so I'll pull one out in a minute. So there is some things to look for if you're going to buy your hammocks instead of make them. The first thing you're looking for is called top stitching. This is one I've made. I do not use metal grommets. I think they're expensive and they're not really that necessary, so I use buttonholes on mine. But what you're looking for is this line of stitching around the entire edge of the hammock. Any basic hammock worth buying needs to have this top stitching, and here is why. This is one that I got in a lot from somebody who was trying to clear out inventory and needed money for rat funds for vet. And so I felt bad and I was like, well, I can always use a couple more hammocks. Washed it once, guys. One time. We have a hole in the hammock. The flannel frayed because their seam allowance was so narrow that it just frayed right out of it. You can't even see it because it's black, but there's literally less than like this much space between the line of stitching here and the edge of the fabric. So it just ripped. The other thing you want to look for is don't waste your money on hammocks that have little loops like this. They look fine, but if you have more than 2 rats, especially if you have males, this is what will happen. This person, let's see if we can get it to focus on that. This person did not put this edge deep enough into the fabric, so it pulled out. This happened while my rats were sitting in it, before I had even washed it. So that's a problem. You can see that there's no top stitching. You can tell this because you can just roll the fabric and there's no line around the edge. That's for a basic hammock. You should expect top stitching. You should expect grommets. Fleece scraps work fine as loops. Not ribbon, not paracord, none of that nonsense. It needs to be something sturdy that can hold weight. If you're making it yourself and you want to use ribbon, you can do that. However, you're going to need to melt it. Most ribbon is polyester based. You can see on this one. Let's see if it'll focus real good. There we go. You can see that edge right there is hard and it actually is kind of discolored. It's because I melted it with a lighter. I did that on all the ribbons on these placemat hammocks that I made for my boys. So if you do that, it makes a much more sturdy seam that will be harder for the thread to rip through the ribbon, which is actually what happened in this one. The thread just ripped through it. This whole edge is frayed because it was sewn on an angle and it just ripped right through it. So the only way for me to fix this is literally to make the hole bigger, make a new hole here, put the loop back in, and restitch the whole thing. And that's kind of a pain considering I didn't pay very much, especially if you look, this edge here is already starting to do the same thing. Let's see if we can get that. I don't think it's going to focus on it. But if you can see this little fuzziness, it's ripping out too. Like it's barely, how do I get there? It's a little better. It's barely hanging on there, guys. Oh, look at that. So, you know, that's disappointing. I want to support other rat parents because, you know, I like to support small business. My sister was a small business owner for a while. My husband was a small business owner for a while. I like to do that where I can, but I don't like feeling gypped, and this makes me feel gypped. Okay, so the next thing that you want to pay attention to, for more expensive hammocks, you should expect what's called quilting. This will literally look, I don't know how well you can see this. Can you see these little lines? They run all the way through my hammocks. I do this because it makes my boys not chew them and try to get in between the layers. So quilting is very simple, but it's more time consuming. So if a seller does this, you should expect to pay more for your hammock. This one's made out of a fat quarter, and it's stained, but it's clean. So this is flannel on one side, quilting cotton on the other. Super thin, great for summer. So if you have quilting, it will make it less fun for your rats to chew on. I think that's it. If you have any questions about hammocks, leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. I think that's it.